is Tata Rompepecho, and this is the very first episode of Tatas Cave, the podcast. And on today's episode, I didn't actually know what subjects to talk about, so I went ahead and asked my followers what I should open with, and how to break the ice basically. And they wanted me to speak about me. So, as I said, name is Tata Rompepecho. I've been initiated, I think at this point, it's been over 10 years, probably more than that. Um, I know the date, I just don't keep track of the numbers. I grew up around these traditions, so we don't really it feels a lot longer than what the actual number says it to be. Um and that's how it is for pretty much most Cubans. We sit here and we'll give you the numbers of initiation, like how many years we've been initiated, but for us it feels like a lifetime because we really grew up around this. Whether we were initiated or not, we grew up around it. Um, so yeah, that's the thing there. So Tata means father. Um, the title of Tata is a priest title within Nkisi Malongo or Palo Mayombe as people call it. I really don't know why people call it that. That is actually not the right name, but that's what people call it. So moving along from that, what is my mission statement with today's episode? Well, to be honest with you, it's not just today's episode, it's the entire podcast. The mission is really to just spread some wisdom, have some casual conversation with you guys. I mean, I won't always be 100% spiritual in all the conversations. I might be answering spiritual questions, and then next thing you know, I'm over here talking about the car or something like that. So the point is, I want to bring spiritual wisdom and have casual conversation with you guys. It's something that I've been wanting to do for a while. I just didn't know how to start um the podcast and like what subjects to speak on and how to break the ice really. Um Basics everyone should know. That's actually a really good question that not enough people ask, and it bothers me. But let's speak on basics. So some basics. I have been seeing a lot of people get this mixed up. There are many, many various traditions and traditional religions that are not all the same. They are not all the same. Not everyone belongs in one specific traditional religion. What I'm talking about is everyone and their grandmama nowadays wants to be an Ifa. They say they want to reconnect to their ancestors and their ancestors and their ancestors and their ancestors, and so they go towards Ifa. Yet the greater majority of their ancestors are Bantu. Doesn't make sense. Um, Ifa comes from a different region, and Bantu traditions and where some of these ancestors come from, just quite frankly, they wouldn't have practiced Ifa. And there's nothing wrong with Ifa. There's nothing wrong with any of these traditions, let's be real here. But not all of them are for everyone. And there isn't any one that is the main one that everyone should be, discussing when they're discussing African spirituality or the diaspora um, spirituality. It's not, there isn't the one golden ticket for all of it. Um, there's a bunch of different ones, and you really want to keep that in mind. There's a bunch of different ones, and not all of them will resonate with you. Some of them will, some of them won't. They all have their own different protocols, their own different culture, their own different traditions, their morals, their teaching systems, their own hierarchy. All these things come with these traditions. And so you really need to keep that in mind for the basics. Um, Most of these traditions actually come from a place of learning is definitely not done from books. is definitely done by sitting at the feet of your elders. And those elders sat at the feet of their elders, and those elders sat at the feet of their elders. And we just keep it going like that. And that's how we create tradition and lineage. Um, there's definitely no way that we're talking about learning the majority of these traditions from books and stuff like that. That is a no go. That is a very terrible thing. It's a tragedy if you think about it, because anyone can author a book. Like, I could pick up a pen and start writing about, let's say, Palo Mayombe, and published through, let's say, Amazon or whatever it is, and no one verified any of what I said. And now here I am selling these books, and I could have said, the spirits are green, and now people that are learning from books are all going to think that spirits are green. So this is why we don't learn traditions or traditional religions from books, because there is no verification on it. So no go on the books. You can read books to give you a general concept, a general understanding of what it's like, but please take the books with a grain of salt. Books do not and should not be your sole or any form of like honest uh, learning experience from the majority of these traditions. um, so that's the basics. It's you really got to keep in mind that it's not just one. You can't learn it from books. You really got to find elders, and you really got to sit at the foot of your elders to really learn these traditions, or I would say at least the majority of them. Some of them might be different. I can't speak for all traditions. I can only speak for the ones that I do know of, that I have seen and experienced and grew up around. Um, so the very next one was, well, finding your spiritual path, right? So this goes hand in hand with what I was talking about in the basics. There's so many traditions. How do you find your path? And the honest answer is everything starts with the ancestors. You have to speak to your ancestors. And when people ask me, well, what do you mean by speak to your ancestors? I mean it literally. Like, speak to them. Like, if they were right there, right next to you, you just speak out loud to them. Hey, I need y'all to help me figure out my spiritual path. Put me on the correct path. Show me what exactly it is that I need to go towards. Um, and you'll start noticing that they start um giving little nudges towards specific traditions and specific folks around you to really get you, involved in what it is you're supposed to be involved in. Um, so that's the first step. The second step is divination, right? So if you don't know which spiritual path to get involved in, then the answer is you start at all of the above. You start at all of the ones that are related to you, all the ones that resonate with you, all the ones that you like. So, say for example, you come from a mixed bloodline, um, like myself. I'm Cuban and Angolan and Spanish. Um, but the Spanish didn't really resonate with me, so I'm not gonna be looking into any kind of like um, gypsy spirituality or Wiccan or pagan or anything like that. But the Angolan sits heavy on my soul. So then I started looking into um, traditions that or spiritualities that came out of that region, and that led me down a really big rabbit hole, which ultimately led me towards Nkisi Malongo. And it's more the same for you guys. Follow who you are and who your ancestors tell you you are and where they tell you you should be, and you'll start seeing that certain things start resonating more and more. um in terms of finding an elder, it's a very complicated subject, but the very first thing you need to do is not find an elder. What you really need to do is find the path first. See, people want to find elders and then jump and skip to the end, which is, initiation And that's not the correct way of doing things. You have to find the path first, what resonates with you, and once you figure out what resonates with you, then you find a reputable elder, a reputable priest that can help you go down that path. But you already know that this is the path that you really do want, you really do feel in your soul. And the reason you go this way is because if you're just jumping to elders instead of path, you're going to come across elders that are dishonest, maybe fakes, scams, frauds. And the moment you come across one of these people, you're going to have this idea of this is the entirety of the tradition. You're going to have a bad taste in your mouth towards the tradition. And then something that could have very easily been your actual path ends up being something that leaves a very sour taste in your mouth and you want nothing to do with it. So, in order to avoid this, you really want to start with the path first. And then if you do bump into someone that, let's say, is a scam, a fraud, or whatever it is, you already know this person is the problem, not the path. The path itself is what I want. This person is the one that's undeserving of me. Um, So the very next one is wanting versus needing initiations. Man, that is such a banger right there. All right, so I've seen a lot of people um flat out just want initiations. They have no need for them. They have definitely no need for them. They're out here living their best life, but they're chasing down initiations and chasing down titles and whatnot. And the truth is, if you don't need it, you can want it, and maybe the spirits will accept you, but maybe not. Now, when you need initiations, it's a different story. Needing them basically puts, let's say, a fire under your feet. It makes it a much more important matter that you do get within that spirituality, you do get within that tradition. Um, Even if you have to, travel across, the span of 8, 9 elders, because the first 7, 8 of them were trash. Um, but you need that. Um, that's just non-negotiable. Now, it's very interesting because people that want initiations usually have some sort of a rush. They're I guess they're the best way to describe this is they're so fixed on getting these titles and being done with it and being initiated that they have no patience for the process, no patience for anything. And so people that want initiations and they're in such a rush are usually the ones that get really messed up on these spiritual streets because they don't have patience, man. Not everything is instant. There is a process to these things, and a lot of these traditions, I've seen that there's a process, and it's actually quite long sometimes, and people just want to skip around and get to the end result. Um, Now, when people need initiations, then they have no option but to force these initiations and speed things up. But let's be honest here. Let's bring this back real quick. So there is two different kinds of needs. There is you need it for the betterment of your life, and then there is you need it because there is something disastrously wrong with you, and you need this to save your life, right? So, if you need it for the betterment of your life, for quality of life, and to reconnect to your ancestors, listen, there is no rush. Take your time, do the whole process, um, do all the steps, enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey. Don't rush to the finish line. Trust me, the finish line isn't even the finish line people think it is. Being initiated isn't the finish line, it's actually the beginning. So when you get initiated, that's when you start. your journey into spirituality. People like to think that getting initiated is the end of the journey. Um, Now, when it's more of an emergency, more of an urgent matter, where they need initiations to save their lives, then you have no option but to run. Obviously, you're trying to save your life. So those folks usually do have also um, problems with getting caught up with the wrong elders or in the wrong houses. And I feel bad for them because a lot of these predatory scammers and whatnot try to abuse of this. The whole, oh, you need to be initiated. Um, but yeah, that's the whole concept of wanting versus needing initiations. Um, Now I really wanted to mention discernment with spirituality. And the reason why I mention this is because, you know, I've been looking around social media and everyone says use your discernment, use your discernment, use your discernment. But a lot of the same people that are saying use your discernment are a lot of the same people that didn't use theirs. And they're telling others to use their discernment. Meanwhile, they're a horrible example of using discernment. Um, Using your discernment within spirituality is something that is actually necessary, and at the same time, it should be almost second nature, right? So, all of spirituality revolves around your use of discernment. And what I mean by that is, um, not everything that you hear from everyone should be something that you believe anyway. So when you get into these traditions, the majority of them, if not all of them, have these rules in place. Like, say, for example, my godchildren, it is severely disrespectful to me as their elder for them to go and get readings from someone else without actually contacting me first and getting my blessing. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and block them, but on it's because of the principle. You're my elder. Let me inform you, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. I'm making this move. And then I'm gonna turn around and be like, I understand, you know, bless you. Go ahead, handle your business. Now, here's the issue with that, right? Folks think that this is some sort of a power trip. And folks that think this obviously don't know um, a lot of African culture, um, because this is normal in a lot of African cultural backgrounds and in these traditions. This is normal. You show your parents the utmost respect. And as your elder and the one that initiated you into this tradition and the one that is guiding you in your spiritual journey, I am like a father to you. So, yes, you should show me the due respect of saying, hey, look, I know you're the one guiding me spiritually, but I'm going to go ahead and get a reading from someone else. And then when you do that, it's my job to get outside of my ego and my personal feelings and give you the best guidance possible. If that means that I have to put my ego aside and recognize that someone else might be able to give you better advice than I can, then that's what I got to do, right? All right, I'm back. I'm sorry about that. I don't know if y'all heard that little beep right before the pause. That was actually my mic turning off on me. Like it just said no, no more. All right, but yeah, so what I was talking about was so in this example that I gave where it's like, my god kids should approach me before they get readings from someone else. The actual reasoning behind this is because it's my job to protect them from scammers, frauds, all this other stuff, right? So this is my responsibility. And here's where the discernment comes in. If they go and they find their own people to read them um, behind the scenes without my knowledge, then, well, they're opening the door to be contacting someone that's out to scam them or whatever it is. Now, obviously, that's their own problem, right? But here's the thing, if you really practice these spiritual traditions, and as I said, discernment is second nature to you, discernment is using everything that you do, then um, even when you're getting readings from people, when you're divining on what you're going to do, everything, you're approaching everything with a certain amount of, I guess you could call it skepticism. You're approaching everything with a discerning eye. I don't trust people outside of my elder to give me the truth. And so, because of that, as I said, discernment should be almost second nature to people that really practice these traditions the correct way. It should be in their day to day life. Not anyone should be just trusted just on the strength of what their bio says, or on the strength of what they say they are, or on the strength of what they look like. Because, um, I could go ahead and I could pay someone $100 and have them dress up, you know, complete head to toe traditional wear and have them say two, three words at your face, and now you're gonna believe them because they dress traditionally. And then, I've heard, oh no, you should only trust older folks. Well, you know what? I could get someone grandpa and pay him $100 and have him pretend to be an elder, and now because everyone is saying we'll only trust older folks, you're gonna see the gray hairs on his head and think, well, no, I could trust this one. No, that's not how discernment works. Discernment is not something where it's like, well, I could let my guard down. No, it's the complete opposite. Discernment involves a certain healthy amount of skepticism, and you should approach these spiritual practices and these traditions with a healthy amount of skepticism towards everyone until such a time comes where you have found your elder, you have settled with that elder. You guys vibe really good. They're helping you. You're studying. Everything is going good. Then you could set your skepticism aside because that is your elder. And now you trusted them with your life. And even then, it's still not safe to completely let the discernment go. Some elders can, quite frankly, put their god kids in dangerous situations, um, even if they don't mean to. So even then, I still wouldn't let go of the discernment all the way. But it's only really advisable to let your guard down, let that skepticism go once you found an elder you trust. Outside of that, everyone else should be treated with a healthy high dosage of skepticism. I don't care what your bio says. I don't care what your mouth says. You can tell me you're a Baba of 59,000 years. I do not care. I do not trust you because I do not know you. For me to trust you, I have to get to know you. We have to sit down. We have to talk face to face. I have to know where you live, where you come from. What do you really practice? Let's talk on some ceremonies. Let's talk on some other subjects. You know what? Let's talk outside of spirituality. What is your family looking like? What are you doing for your community outside of spirituality? Let's figure out who you are as a person. Once I know you as a person and you check out, then I can go ahead and release some of my skepticism. Which means that for the record, my recommendation that I'm giving you guys is that 99% of everyone on the internet is not to be trusted. That's actually my recommendation. Not to be trusted. Their bios will say whatever they say, their mouths will say whatever they say, but do you really know these people? Do you really know their background? Do you really know what they practice? Not what they say they practice, what they practice. Do you really know these things? Have you really met these folks? And if the answer is no to these things, then you should not be trusting these people with your spiritual journey. Your spirituality is something that extends into from this day in your life until your last day in this life, and even further. See, your body, your mortal body, is something that you are born with into this lifetime, and at a certain point, this body will fail, and you will quote unquote die. Um, but your soul will continue forever. And so your spirituality, your essence, your spirit will continue forever. And if you trust these folks that you don't even believe, that you don't even know with your spirituality, then you're trusting your forever essence to people you don't know. And that doesn't make sense because I know most of you wouldn't trust your debit card in my hands if you don't even know me, but yet you're willing to trust your entire spirituality to someone else that you have no idea who they are just because their bio said a few key words. It doesn't make sense. But yes, so that's the discernment. Um, Basically, just approach everyone with skepticism until you really get to know them, until you really feel comfortable that you really, really know this person. And even then, I would still hold on to some of that skepticism. It is necessary. Now, commonly asked questions, I'm asked certain questions a lot. For example, I'm asked, "You're a Baba, right?" No, I am not a Baba. I am a Tata. Baba is a title of priesthood in a whole different tradition. One that I do not participate in, I am not initiated into, has nothing to do with me. Dada is a title of priesthood in the tradition that I do participate in, I am initiated into. Um, and this goes back to what I was saying with the basics. There are several traditions. It's not just one spirituality. Please, people, please. Africa is a huge continent with lots of countries in it. It's not one little country. Stop with this, oh, spirit African spirituality, Ifa. No, that's not how that works. There's so much more than Ifa out there. It's not just Ifa. Um, Another question that I'm commonly asked is, why do you always come across so aggressive um on social media? And the answer is, I don't mean to come across aggressive. But what I do mean to do is point out when things are wrong. Because, see, people look to me for the truth. And if I do not point out the truth and expose the lie, then the people that look to me for truth can fall for the lie. And then, how good of an elder am I when I'm letting them fall for lies left, right, and center? That's not what an elder does. An elder points out the truth and reveals the lies and tells them, don't do this, don't mess with this person. They have no idea what the hell they talking about. They out here taking people's monies. They out here mispronouncing words. They out here doing this, that, and the third. That's what an elder's responsibility is. So while it seems harsh and it seems aggressive, it's not that I'm being aggressive, it's that I'm protecting my tribe. Because, see, if I interact with the wrong people and I never expose them for being fakes and frauds, then my godchildren, and even not the godchildren, even just followers of mine, will see that my name is attached to this person, and then they'll think that that person is reputable, and then they'll go and deal with that person. And when they get scammed, the very first thing that's going to come to their mind is, well, Tata messed with that person. So is Tata also, bullshit? Is Tata also scamming out here? So that's why, it really comes across like that. And as I said, I don't mean for it to come across like that. I just want to keep everyone safe out here. Um, and then the third most common question I get asked is, why why do you have such a issue with people confusing Tata for Baba, Baba for Tata? Why do you have such an issue with this? And the answer is because they didn't even come from the same region. These are two traditions that came from nowhere near each other. These are two traditions that have nothing really to do with each other. And yet, people are convinced that they should be mixing these traditions and not just being initiated into both and then, practicing one when it's necessary and the other when it's necessary. No, I'm talking about their consulting Ogun on top of their, Sarabanda. They are mixing these things, and this is not okay. There is no precedence for this, and there's no guarantees that any of it will work, right? So if you say, for example, if you mix Lucero with El Egua and you make a Lucero Gua Mojo bag or whatever you want to call it, Makuto, um, there's no guarantee one that's going to work. Two, there's no guarantee that one of those two beings isn't going to get pissed off and want revenge for how you treated them. Because let's face the facts here, they gave protocols on how they should be approached. And if you break these protocols, then what you're really telling them is, I know what you said, but fuck you, I'm going to do what I want, and I'm going to make you do what I want. And that just goes back to slavery. That's just modern day slavery of spirits. That is not okay. So these spirits can get absolutely pissed off and really seek revenge for these kinds of things. So that's why it's not okay to mix these things. Do not mix them. You can be initiated in multiple traditions and practice one when it's needed and the other one when it's needed, but what you can't do is you can't mix them both together and come up with a third tradition. That is not okay. And then I was asked to speak on setting up the boveda. Um, I'm not sure I'd want to go into too much detail on this episode. I really do want to touch on that more in depth on its own episode, Espiritismo, the boveda, the whole subject. But in this specific episode, I don't want to go too in depth with it. I just want to mention that there are different, I guess you could say, um, altars. There are different types of espiritismo or spiritism in English. And historically, the Bóveda is Mesa Blanca Espiritismo, and it features 7 glasses of water. More modern day, people are mixing quote unquote Santeria, which is really just Lukumi, with Espiritismo, and because of their mixing, they are now making the glasses 9 glasses of water. Now, when you ask them for their reasoning as to why it should be 9 glasses of water, you almost always get the response because Oya. Oya has nothing to do with Espiritismo. Oya does not exist within Espiritismo. Oya is an Orisha. She exists within Orisha traditions. Or they'll say no because 9 is the number of Egun. Egun is another Orisha terminology that has nothing to do with Espiritismo. Espiritismo is its own thing. It is 7 glasses. Each glass is its own commission of spirits. So it's its own category of spirits. That's why it's 7. There's 7 different commissions of spirits. And there can be more. There can be more, but um that's only when the spirit said that you need more. The base, the default altar is 7, not 9. Um, when you see 9 glasses, what the person is practicing is not espiritismo, it is santerismo. It is a breed, a hybrid between espiritismo and santeria or lukumi. And it is so loosely regulated. Like um there's no real rules here as to what exactly can and cannot be done within this kind of a setup. So people just, they just make up things as they go. And who's going to tell them they're wrong, So I do not personally practice Santerismo. I don't personally know anyone that does. Well, I know a few people that do, but we're not, I guess you could say, um, on good terms, basically. I don't I don't condone, I don't support the whole concept of Santerismo. From my personal perspective, I view this as a very dangerous practice that can really hurt people's spiritual lives. And so I don't partake in it and I don't condone it and I don't recommend it to anyone. What I do recommend is the normal, historically traditional Mesa Blanca Espiritismo, seven glasses, seven commissions, the candles, the flowers, the books, go. Um, but yeah, so setting up the Boveda, that will be for another episode, and we will get in more detail as to what exactly a Boveda is, how exactly it's used, and all these other beautiful things. Just know this, that the Boveda and Espiritismo is its own specific traditional practice or spirituality, is its own thing. It's not a part of anything else. It is its own thing. And it is non initiatory, so you don't need any kind of initiation to have one of these. And it is an altar and the usage of an altar um, in terms of communicating with the spirits and the ancestors. So that's the gist of what the Bovedina Espiritismo is. And if you want to hear more detailed information about it, we will go ahead and go further into that in another episode. But, anyways, this audio is getting a bit long, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it off here. Thank you all for listening. This is my very first episode. Um, yeah, appreciate y'all.